Hey guys, weekend energy update. Let's get into it. Of course, right now we are following on the heels of our new moon in Gemini that happened on Thursday, June 6th. Very lovely new moon that happened in an exact conjunction with Venus. But if you remember, or if you watched my new moon video, I was saying how the new moon was also happening in a relatively tight square to Saturn, which is the energy that we are moving into stronger this weekend. On Sunday, the sun will square Saturn exactly on Saturday. Venus will square Saturn exactly. And we also have shifting vibes going on this weekend as Mars enters the sign of Taurus. This is definitely going to stall things out, you guys. Saturn slows things down, it limits, it restricts, it controls. Taurus with Mars, especially coming out of the sign of Aries, like this is definitely like digging in heels, like slamming on brakes, really slowing things down. So there could be honestly some like impediments to motion, to communication. There could be conflicts going on with authority or some type of rule or regulation or restraint that we're coming up against. There could also just be some harsh criticism or judgment, and we could feel like there's sort of just something taking the wind out of our sails, you guys, as we move through the energy of the next week. This too shall pass. Don't get too caught up on it. Be careful with like the self-doubt. That is something that is likely to be kind of strong right now as well. And also being maybe like pulled in two directions, feeling like you're caught between a rock and a hard place, not really sure what to do, suspended animation, kind of like needing to make a choice or a decision, but feeling very pulled in two different directions. So if there's something like that that is coming up, wait on it if you can. Again, we've got a lot of Saturn energy that is coming in over the course of the next 6 or 7 days. So if you can hold off, you guys, until we get through this, then we're actually going to have a Mercury Sun conjunction. There's going to be some better energy coming through, and we do have a lot to talk about as we move through the weekend. So all that being said, let's get into it. Let's talk about how energy is coming together for us this weekend and what perhaps we can expect as we do head towards next week. Welcome back to my channel, you guys. Today is Friday, June 7th, 2024. My name is Aubrey. This is your astrological outlook of the weekend, where we are narrating the shift of the ages. We're going to look at the energy that we have playing out all weekend this weekend, transitioning us into next week. So let's do that. We have a lot of energy going on. Of course, like I said, yesterday on Thursday, that was our new moon in Gemini. That was in an exact conjunction to Venus. Venus and the Sun had actually been traveling together at the same degree day after day, changing degrees together, holding hands since this past Sunday. And we had the exact to the moment alignment happen on this past Tuesday. And now this current Friday, where we are today, farewell to the exact alignment that we've had between Venus and the Sun. Venus moves ahead, and we also have a tightening of the square between both the Sun and Venus, with Saturn in the sign of Pisces, which will come exact on Saturday for Venus, and then on Sunday for the Sun, alongside Mars actually entering the sign of Taurus, which is ruled by Venus, who is in a square to Saturn. I'm telling you guys, things have probably over this past several days been like very fast paced, very like on the go, lots of action, lots of activity. This is likely to shift, especially as we get into the energy of Sunday. It may really feel like things are like hitting a brick wall. There could definitely be some major like blocks in communication, our ability to act, our ability to even like movement or travel. There could be like some rules or restrictions or regulations we find ourselves coming up against. But with Mars entering now the sign of Taurus, which is fixed Earth, coming out of the sign of Aries, where it is just like gung-ho, like fire blazing path ahead, like very fast-paced, assertive energy in like a forward direction. Now with Mars moving into the sign of Taurus, this is a much slower and more gradual process when we're talking about the Martian energy. And also when the ruler of that energy, Venus ruling Taurus, is in a literal like square to Saturn, that is also, Saturn really slows things down. Saturn Saturn's control, Saturn's limitations, Saturn's restraints. So where you may have felt like gung-ho about something, I'm ready to move forward, I'm ready to make a decision, like things are going in a certain direction, like everything seems to be coming together, everything's looking beautiful, I'm feeling really good about it. There could be something coming in throughout the course of the weekend that is bringing up a level of doubt or insecurity, or again, just like some type of boundary or blockage or limitation somehow that could be messing things up or messing with us internally. Mental and emotional conflict coming through as well. We've got an air sign hosting the Sun and Venus, and we have a water sign, Pisces, hosting Saturn. That's why we have the square coming through. It's also mutable energy. So there are changes and transitions that are incorporated in or as a result of or a component of whatever conflict could be going on somehow. 90 degrees, squares, these are two things coming to a head, right? This is some type of conflict that needs to be overcome so that forward progress can be created. We also have two very polarized signs that are hosting this square. Gemini, of course, is probably the most polarized sign, ruling the twins, but then we've also got Pisces, which is literally like two fish swimming in different directions. This is also a very, very polarized energy. So we could feel really pulled in two different directions, caught between, the rock and the hard place type of energy, like indecision, not knowing what to do, conflict between truth and illusion, caught in a state of like lacking clarity somehow. Also, as I was saying, blocked communication, inability to access some type of information, or just the flow of things generally in the mutable energy being backed up, stalled, stopped somehow. Especially also with the Martian energy moving into the sign of Taurus, which is pumping the brakes in terms of the activity levels that are going on as well. So don't be surprised if you do feel a bit deflated by something, maybe like something takes the wind out of your sails. I'm trying to use air metaphors because, of course, we've been in this Gemini, very air strong, uplifted, flighty, kind of like all over the place type of energy. Well, now we've got this Saturnian vibe, especially in the sign of Pisces. It could be like the white blanket or the wet blanket, that is kind of like thrown over things that really like dampens things out. And there could just be, we could just feel a little bit down, okay? This could be lowering the vibe, I would say, as we move through the weekend. Might just be something more serious that comes up that we're sort of dealing with or thinking about. We could be thinking about things in a more serious way, or there could be like a difficult job that needs to be done that we're kind of like not looking forward to. Conflict with authority is also always likely to be a thing when we've got a Sun-Saturn square going on. This is like two kind of like equally strong forces vying for control over a situation, things coming, clashes of wills, you know what I mean? So there could be that type of thing, especially after we've been riding so high this past week or so energetically with the conjunction of the Sun and Venus and Mercury entering Venus and Mercury entering Gemini and Mercury and Jupiter together in Gemini. Like all of this has been very optimistic, optimism promoting, like uplifting energy that we've had coming through. And this is likely just to sort of turn the tables on that a little bit, I would say. And again, this is, while it's not a long-term energy, it is probably going to be a thing that we're dealing with throughout the course of the next 6 to 7 days. That's because even after this energy passes, and we'll be talking about this as we get into the energy of next week as well, Mercury, who is also transiting Gemini right now, is going to be following right on the heels of Venus and the Sun, and will also come into the square with Saturn next week from his home sign of Gemini. So that is going to be bringing our mind into this whole thing as well. And there could just be, it would probably be best to maybe just anticipate a bit of a heavier or like more serious flow of events unfolding over this next couple of days, or perhaps prepare yourself to be a little bit more patient and have a little bit more self-discipline, because that is what just might be required in a lot of the situations and scenarios that we face. So if we're kind of like geared and oriented towards that in advance, then it may be a little less kind of like just irritating or difficult to proceed through the challenges that we may find ourselves coming into contact with as we move through this time. But once we do get through the energy of next week, Mercury is going to come into conjunction with the sun and then with Venus, and this will uplift things again. So the lighter vibes are coming back. We just kind of have to go through this week that may be just causing us to need to try a little bit harder to be our best selves, if you know what I mean. So, overall, though, you know, we also have to remember the Gemini new moon that we had yesterday was like in an exact conjunction with Venus as well. So the whole cycle is indicating ultimately, you know, a beautiful set of circumstances and events. Like things should be quite nice. Like this is some lovely times that we've got going on. There's just this little lingering Saturn square that could be making things a little bit challenging and difficult, but we're going to get through it. It's going to be okay. Overall, very positive and fruitful cycle coming at us, and this, you know, mutable sign square might be taking us down a couple pegs in some capacity over this weekend. Constructive criticism is like a notable theme here, so take criticism in the most constructive way possible, even if it's not intended that way. And you know, if it's not intended that way, or if there's a level of projection that you just know is intertwined in that criticism or that judgment, take it with a grain of salt, and that will do you well as well. Do your best to learn, though, from any mistakes that you're making or that, you know, people are bringing to your attention in this energy, any harsh lessons or judgments that present themselves. Be open to taking instruction in a positive way or in a way that makes yourself better, instead of, you know, just being super down on yourself and feeling like the worst, you know, because it can really manifest in that way as well. If we can do our best to just not take things, especially like other people's opinions about stuff, too seriously in this energy, unless it is benefiting us somehow, that is probably going to be like a helpful tidbit, okay? And again, this concept of feeling torn in two varying directions, confused about what to believe, perhaps questioning our own judgment or that of some authority figure, maybe second guessing something somehow, maybe looking for a second opinion on something coming into play somehow. It is crazy. Also, let me tell you guys, the Sabian symbol placement that are being activated by where the square is happening, which is happening at 20 degrees of Gemini and Pisces on Saturday. The sun and Venus, that's the degree where Venus will square Saturn exactly on Saturday as well. Venus will make the square on Saturday. So Saturday, you know, like this could just be like plans not turning out the way that we wanted. There could be a level of like disappointment or challenge in regards to whatever we've got going on with other people, or money, relationship, purchase, investment type stuff in the energy of Saturday. Moving to Sunday, this would be when we have the exact Sun-Saturn square. We only get 2 of these a year. We have 2 Sun-Saturn squares a year, and we have a Sun-Saturn conjunction and a Sun-Saturn opposition. Those are the harsh aspects that the Sun and Saturn make with each other every year that always represents a process or a point in a process of maturity that we are individually and collectively undergoing at any given period of time. Now, with Saturn transiting the sign of Pisces, of course, this gave us our first square when the sun was in Sagittarius, and now we're having our second square. Well, actually, I guess technically this would be the first square of 2024, but the last one was when the sun was in the sign of Sagittarius, squaring Saturn in Pisces, and now we've got, of course, the sun in Gemini, squaring Saturn in the sign of Pisces, and Venus is there as well. But anyways, I was wanting to say, and it's funny that Venus was there because both of these symbols are like directly related to eating food, which is like Venus and Taurus energy. But anyways, it's really crazy how these two symbols in the square with Saturn and the sun play out, because they literally are talking about like 2 totally different versions of the same thing, like one that is very traditional and one that is kind of like unconventional. So I feel like that type of concept is coming into play as well in terms of these dichotomies that might be presenting. But anyways, let me get to the symbols. So 20 Gemini, right? The position where the sun is on Sunday for this square to Saturn is a cafeteria with an abundance of choices. And then the position where Saturn is, 20 Pisces, that Sabian symbol is a table set for an evening meal. So like both of these are like, how are we feeding ourselves, right? Like how are we sustaining ourselves? Like how are we nourishing ourselves? Like what are we intaking to, you know, for our like meal or whatever. And one's talking about the abundance of choices in the cafeteria setting, and one's like this formal where Saturn is, which is funny because Saturn is like tradition and formality and stuff like that, a table set for an evening meal. So, you know, those two symbols juxtaposed to each other, the sun and Saturn, both like the authoritative masculine components of the way that energy manifests itself in our psyche and in our archetypal reality, coming into the 90 degrees with each other, and then literally describing like two totally polarized ways of essentially accomplishing the same purpose. So there could be something like that that is somehow incorporated and presented in terms of how this energy is playing out for us. But I do think with the Gemini component of things being where the sun is, and also the Saturnian energy, like doing what it takes, okay, to gain as much insight and information into whatever like things maybe we're juggling, or like the counterparts or the situations or the people involved or whatever, like doing what we can to really like research and learn about what we're dealing with, even if we don't want to, even if it takes extra effort, even if we'd rather not, like digging deep and putting in the work, getting our hands dirty now that we've got Mars entering the sign of Taurus, where what happens, you guys, when we have planets entering the beginning of fixed signs right now? You know, I know you know, they form a square to Pluto, who is right now retrograding in the early degrees of Aquarius. So getting your hands dirty, Mars entering Taurus, squaring Pluto in Aquarius retrograde, very good, like conscious way to actively manifest the energy right now in and of your, like on your own terms, okay? But once you get, you know, as much as you can, or once you put in the work, or once you gather the information, or once you go through it or whatever, don't even necessarily expect yourself to be able to process it all. Don't expect yourself to be able to come to a conclusion. Don't jump to conclusions. Don't make assumptions. Again, remember, there is a blockage in there's a distortion in the information field. When we have planets in Gemini squaring planets in Pisces, I'm always reading this as some type of distortion in an informational field. It's like Mercury squaring Neptune. It's like it is the lines between what's real and what's not, fact and fantasy, truth and illusion, like they're at odds with each other, and it's really hard to decipher like what's on the straight and narrow, you know, like what is real and what is not. And I feel like that is a lot of kind of what could be causing some of the conflict and indecision that is going on within us now. So I really feel like the best thing that we can do is just gather information, collect data, you know, be the investigator, right? Like do what it takes to gain the information or the insight, or put forth the effort to get this, that, or the other job done that we need to get done right now. But don't decide if you don't have to, right? Don't jump to these conclusions. This is that we don't necessarily like, while we may be able to collect the data, or maybe we can't even get to it because of the blockages right now, the processing aspect of it is just not going to be running to its like highest and best capacity. Be satisfied with the efforts that you are putting in to try to understand something, but don't set the expectation that you are actually going to necessarily grasp it. And just go ahead with the Saturn Pisces energy, like put it to bed, you know, let yourself take a nap if you can, like try to take the pressure off if you can. Realize your judgment is likely to be clouded somehow. This energy narrows our mind. It restricts and constricts our ability to see the overall picture, to see all the options, to see all the solutions, and it really like just hones and narrows in generally on what is not working, what doesn't look right, like what is you know, on the more negative side of things. It can be very pessimistic. We can be very blind to the bigger picture of things, and that's a lot of times why we feel more down and more depressed, and like things can never work, and like we may really feel like we are stuck. Like this energy also reminds me of maybe feeling like, you know, taking taking one step forward and two steps backwards. But if we are able to convert, you know, some level of impatience with the apparent restrictions that we might be facing into this self-discipline and this greater understanding that our processing is just a bit off right now, and if we don't have to, we probably shouldn't in this energy, you know, it's just, that's a better way to navigate what we've got going on right now. And it is supportive energy, again, for like detail oriented work and maybe like getting some hard truths or putting in some extra effort that might be required to actually gain a greater insight into something that is necessary to like help our process somehow. So although I will say that very concept in and of itself is largely a challenge that is also presented in this energy, because it is triggering the polarization between, here's another set of polarizations that comes up when we've got a Sun square Saturn: duty, responsibility, obligation, and ourself, okay? Like self gratification, basically. What I owe myself, what I owe it to myself to do, and my obligations, my duties, responsibilities to others and to the world. My responsibilities versus like my personal needs that I have going on. So pulled into directions, we can feel very, very guilty if we don't, you know, put ourselves to the side to like serve the greater purpose in this energy, or like other people, whatever. But we can also feel very resentful and very like bitter and very just like overwhelmed and overburdened and unappreciated, and that type of sentiment as well when these scenarios come up. So two oppositional, conflicting forces within us going on in situations playing themselves out in the world around us. We could definitely see, I mean, we're talking about polarities, we're talking about Gemini, right? We're talking about Saturn. There could be some very fierce debates going on, opposition, of course, polarities, arguments, disagreements happening, especially, probably, most likely, Gemini and Pisces, you guys. What is that? Gemini, that would be information. Pisces, oh, that would be beliefs, okay? Fact and fiction, truth and illusion, fantasy and reality coming head to head, and perhaps some type of narrative that is breaking down when we've got Saturn in the sign of Pisces. Projections of narratives and illusions by largely also authority figures, with it being Saturn there, that are dissolved by facts and information, an abundance of facts and information, an influx of information perhaps, resulting in a situation where there are so many conflicting ideas and opinions and narratives that, again, no one really knows what's going on. With the Saturn Pisces energy right now, this is a breakdown in authority or the official narrative. And I say that because Saturn rules authority. This is the structures and the frameworks, okay, that holds up our view of reality, and especially belief systems, all right, in the sign of Pisces. But Pisces also is a sign that breaks things down, that dissolves things, that erodes things. And with Saturn there, this is also an erosion and a dissolving of the grip of authority and of control systems, primarily of the past, because Saturn also rules the past. And coming up with the square with Gemini, this is information, this is facts, this is like things going back and forth and chatter and people talking and rumors and stuff like that. So it seems like some type of official narrative that is breaking down through the entrance of alternative information. It's like it reminds me of the Sabian symbols where this is taking place, like the table set for an evening meal, but then the abundance, the cafeteria with the abundance of choices. It's like there's the one meal that was prepared and that is being served, or you could have all these different variations and versions of things that are like interfering with whether people want to continue to eat that same meal. So it's like the official narrative of things breaking down and the emergence of all these alternative perspectives and options and viewpoints and facts and ideas and sets of information and all of that. However, there's like no real clear alternative to what seems to no longer be, or the version that we used to believe that we're starting to realize maybe isn't what it actually was. You know what I mean? Enter in this enhanced state of collective novelty that I've been talking about over this past several months, that represents the phase that we're about to go through in terms of the rules changing. And as a result of that process, we are going to, on a more and more regular basis, find ourselves facing these like unprecedented scenarios and having to deal with and do things and think about things in ways that are untried and untested. And this will actually become a more and more defining feature of our lived experiences as we move forward into this stronger Aquarian energy that's going to be coming in over the course of the next 20 years. Hyper novelty, where we are no longer living in accordance with like the rules of how things had always been done, the mental confines and control structures of our previous historical paradigm of reality. Of course, this is going to open up tremendous opportunity. It's going to create, it feels to me sort of like 1600s type of vibes, like when the explorers like literally didn't know how big the world was and like didn't know that there was like extra land masses out there, and like when they discovered North and South America, literally like changed what everybody thought about reality. It's like the same type of energy as like Galileo, right? Like saying that the planets were rotating around the sun and like how that changed our paradigm of reality. It's like next frontier type of stuff. Like I do personally feel like as we move forward on that greater, more existential level, narrating the shift of the ages, the Aquarian energy coming in, like I do feel like that is literally the type of thing that we are going to experience. And I do think that this square is also indicating, by the nature of the signs involved, and of course the ongoing Jupiter-Pluto trine as well, and Mars also moving into square with Pluto while we've got this going on, the unavoidable trajectory represented through this breakdown of authority that is transitioning us into this enhanced state of novelty that I was just talking about. Novelty flavored with chaos. I think we may see a bit of that moving forward. However, if we focus ourselves now, if we pull it back down, focus back on what might be manifesting in our individual lives, it could be microcosm scenarios like that, honestly, or it could just, I'm about to list a whole bunch of stuff. I'm about to describe like every aspect of this energy. So here we go. You could be feeling depressed, irritated, overworked, overburdened, which I've already mentioned, unloved, unappreciated, like you can never win, like you can never get ahead, one step forward, two step backwards type of vibe, self-criticism, self-doubt, harsh judgment and criticism from others, conflict with authority, vying for control, and inability to get on the same page as someone. Actually, listen to this. There could also be like issues with like meetings of the mind and like diverging minds and like not being able to get on the same page. The position of Mercury, actually, who of course is ruling the position of the sun in square to Saturn, is at 14 Gemini, bridging physical space and social distinctions. Two men communicate telepathically. So that is a very, obviously, like very Gemini degree. Two men communicate telepathically. So there could be an inability with the Saturn square and Mercury being the ruler of that energy to like meld minds, to get on the same page. There could be issues with seeing things from the same perspective as somebody, that's causing conflict as we move through this energy, things being lost in translation as well, inability to communicate, inability to get a message across, blocked, limited, restricted information or communication. I do feel like could be quite huge with this. Just could be difficult. There could be difficult conversations. There could be like hard news or something like that. Also attempts to suppress, hide, or like legitimately like lose or destroy information somehow. Attempts used also, and this is a big one, pay attention here, emotional manipulation, okay, victimhood, pity parties used for the purpose of creating some type of narrative to elicit control over specifically somebody else's mind. That might seem like very specific, but that is a very specific yet entirely in alignment way that this energy could manifests. Lots of victim cards could be played to control a narrative or to influence the mind somehow. So be very careful about that. Don't allow yourself to fall prey to someone else's like pity party or someone else's emotional manipulation, because let me tell you, Saturn is about control, right? And Pisces, this is the emotion. This is the tears, right? This is the victim. This is where we've given so much. This is the martyr. Okay, so covertly, like, attaining control and authority, especially, again, the sun in Gemini, over somebody else's ability to think or ability to question or ability to process information, like keeping somebody like off mentally or lacking clarity in order to exert some type of covert emotional control. That would be all over like the way that this could play out interpersonally with between people as we move through this energy. Avoidance also, both Gemini and Pisces can be, I mean, they're mutable signs, so there can be a level of avoidance, hiding from, escaping difficult conversations or interactions. Could be really like hard to pin or nail things down, and that could be blocking communication in this energy. Not wanting to face something, not wanting to face someone, hiding from accountability, lessons from mistakes and errors of judgment. As I was saying earlier, we want to use this energy and even like the mistakes or the errors that we might be making in it as constructively as possible. And that is one way this energy can actually benefit us. Also, isolation, anxiety, depression could be big things here. Feeling like nobody understands us, feeling totally cut off, feeling like we just cannot like, again, like get on the same page as somebody, just very isolated, like very just like on our own island sort of could be a thing coming up. This could also be, of course, inability to think, speak, or communicate clearly. So be careful here, you guys. You know, all of that, as I said, this energy is not forever. Like this will pass, and things are likely to seem a bit worse than they actually are. Remember, Saturnian energy has a tendency to like narrow us in on like the small stuff and what's not working and what we don't like and, you know, why everything is awful. So do what needs to be done, even if it's not what you would prefer to do. Again, this sentiment of self-discipline, when we get through this energy and you look back at what you were able to accomplish in the face of, you know, whatever was weighing you down, you will be proud of yourself if you are able to, you know, get something done, but despite whatever could be going on. But again, like if you can wait on the choice or decision, please do it. Like if you cannot jump to a conclusion, please do it. Like this is the energy where you should not send that text that you're like really feeling like it would be a good idea to send right now. Like don't send the angry email, don't send the emotional text, like don't make the spontaneous phone call because you feel like you've got to get it all off your chest. Write it down, you know, type it out, save it, don't press send. Have that one-sided conversation with them. Remember the degree of Mercury, right? Two men in different places sit in telepathic communication. Have a conversation with them, one-sided on your own, you know, talk it out, hash it out with your higher self, but don't press send on the device, okay? Wait, think about it, come back to it in a couple of days, see if you still want to go through with it. If it's been a week and you still feel like you should go ahead and send that message, then it's probably the right thing. But we are, you know, as I've said, Saturn strong, okay, from this weekend actually through to next Friday. We have Venus square Saturn, then we have the Sun square Saturn. Come next week, we're going to have Mercury square Saturn. The moon also will be moving into the sign of Virgo, and you guys know we've been talking all about how Saturn's in Pisces and Virgo and Pisces oppose each other, so we will also have the lovely joy of having a Moon-Saturn opposition while Mercury's in square. But as we move into the energy of Friday next week, the squares between Saturn will draw apart, the moon will move on, and Mercury will prepare to come into his Cazimi exact alignment with the sun, which is going to be the light bulb moment. That'll be the clarity that will uplift us again in the sign of Gemini, elevating spirits, The activity will pick up again. So it's probably just going to be a very long week, you guys, but it will also probably in retrospect be quite a productive week on some level, even though we may feel very stalled in whatever it is that we've been excited about or moving towards or anticipating, or just like had been going so nicely over this past couple of days. Friday is when things lighten back up for us. So it is the season of change, you guys. It's the season of choices and decisions. The table set for the evening meal in the cafeteria with the abundance of choices. So what is it going to be, you guys? We've got tradition at odds with convention and that which is a bit more unconventional and open this week. Are you going to go along with the plan, or are you going to kind of choose your own fate? Mars moving into the sign of Taurus also on Sunday. You know, we've talked about this, but let me give a few more specifics on this energy. Mars in Taurus. This is workhorse energy, but only when there's a determination and a will to accomplish something. It's getting the job done thoroughly, getting the job done well, or sort of being kind of like lazy and self-indulgent and just like kind of wanting to relax and take it easy and not do too much. Willful and stubborn and very determined and very hardworking and very motivated, but also on the other hand, really sort of just wanting to kick back and rest and relax and bask in the pleasures of all of our efforts that we've put in. So very stubborn energy as well. Expect people to be acting with a bit of like headstrong, willful, much less willing to go with the flow, I feel like, sort of nature over this next couple of months while Mars is transiting the sign of Taurus. And finally, I just want to say yet again, to reiterate, you know, if you can be productive in this energy, even if you don't want to be, everything probably feels like a chore right now. But at the end of the day, it will be worth it and it will be a job well done. The position of the Earth, finally, to conclude our report of the weekend, 20 degrees of Sagittarius, always in a direct opposition to the sun. That Sabian symbol is men cutting through ice for use in summer. So we're doing the hard work now so that we can have the benefit later. That is also a very Mars and Taurus sentiment. Doing the work so that we can play later. Work hard now. Playing is coming. Like I said, after this week, things are going to lighten up a lot more and we're going to get back to that like lively, spunky, optimistic Gemini energy, and we're going to figure it out. Don't worry, you guys. We've got Sun-Mercury conjunction coming up next Friday. So that's what I have to say for our energy of the weekend. So God, Spirit, Universe, what is a message? What should we keep in mind as we're moving through the weekend? One right away. Look, you guys, you are protected. So don't doubt yourself. Don't doubt the process. It is easy to lose faith in this energy, but you are protected, for he shall give his angels charge over you to keep you in all of your ways. And another thing right now, we do, and we'll talk about this more next week when the moon actually enters the sign of Virgo and activates the black moon, but we have a Neptune black moon opposition that is building the sky right now. The black moon rules our fears and our shadow side issues, and Neptune is the illusion. A lot of the fears that are going to be kind of like rearing their heads up, especially fears of incompetence, fears of failure, fears of like not being good enough, that might be coming up, or just some type of failure, generally financial failure, not having enough resources, something like that comes up maybe over the next couple of weeks. A lot of that is actually going to be an illusion, and this card just made me think of that as well. For he shall give his angels charge over you to keep you in all of your ways. Psalms 91:11. Know your guardian angel is with you always, protecting you from harm. Be assured he keeps you safe. When fear overwhelms you, read the 91st Psalm in its entirety and rest in the assurance you are protected. So there it is, you guys. You know, just try your best to maintain faith and rest in the assurance that you are protected despite just whatever could be coming up suggesting the contrary this weekend. It's the illusion. It is not the reality. And again, remember, that is the whole issue with this energy, is being able to determine what is truth and what is illusion. So no fear, you guys, you are protected. That's what I have to say today. Message from the stars and our synchronicity message from a higher power. I hope you guys liked the video. If you did, please give me a thumbs up. Subscribe to my channel. You guys share it with your friends if you think they would also appreciate this type of astrology content. Leave me comments. I am very grateful for what you guys have to say, for your feedback. I really appreciate knowing what's going on with you out there. If you are having experiences that line up with what I'm talking about in these videos, please let me know in my comment section below. If you want to know what's on this here little whiteboard back here, I have a link in my description box to a Facebook group where I post images of that whiteboard. And have a beautiful weekend, everybody. Bye, guys.